I'm Eric Schmicker with the next episode of the Tipton Thrives Podcast. And today we're going to talk about at least two of the city projects that we've recently bid out and committed to. The first will be lightly with the baseball project and to move it into public safety. But here with me to help facilitate conversation is Riley Harden. Riley does a lot of the city's PR work, and thank him for that. So with that, let's get right into it.
Yeah, definitely. So the bigger project that we're going to be talking about is the public safety building, but we know that we can't talk about the public safety building without at least covering the baseball
Correct.
field. So let's do a quick update, talk about where the project stands and what the projected timeline is, because to people driving by, obviously they haven't seen ground broken or anything. Correct. So where does the project actually stand right now?
Yeah, so in any project, this is the worst part of it. So we went through the bidding process, we selected a contractor to now build the facility, and we're in a hurry up and wait kind of position. And so to further define that, we're confirming scope, making sure that nothing has changed. You know, we've gone through this exercise so many times with people, but want to do it one last time now that we've got a contractor. But the biggest challenge for this project is that it's in the floodplain. At any time you build a project in the floodplain, you need a permit from DNR. And actually, we had this not too long ago with the school corporation when they built the tennis courts, that project had to go through and get a permitting process. And frankly, that project's even further away maybe than the baseball fields from the creek. So that's where we're at currently. In fact, just to provide a little bit further definition of this, because we did have a baseball facility on that location, what we did was we had to dig for an image of the facility, the baseball facility, before 1970. Because I believe in 1973 is when DNR came out with their flood mapping. So what we're trying to do is express to DNR that there were facilities here. All we're trying to do is rebuild them and really try to maybe minimize the permitting process, the length of time that could require, in an effort to expedite the project. So we literally had to find a picture and then define the project limits of the baseball facility, where the fencing, and we're looking at a black and white picture taken from a plane that is very grainy. It is not a great image, but it's likely the best image that we could find at the time to define where the project limits were and then where our project limits will be tomorrow. So that's the process we're at. We actually met this morning to review the information we've collected. We had a lot of survey data that's been taken here lately to help confirm where the project will go and the limits of it. And then that will set us up for a conversation with DNR. The challenge, the threat to this is if we have to go through the full permitting process, DNR tells you it could take at least 90 days. It'll take at least 3 months to go through the full permitting process, because we've got to show modeling to them on where the water displacement will be. And what we're hoping to do is to avoid that. But again, that could be a reality for the project, which will delay start. And so that it's hard to say exactly a construction timeline, because there's this big question mark that we're getting ready to have that conversation with DNR and have had. This isn't the first time we've talked to DNR. We've been talking to DNR, setting this up. So they're expecting the conversation. Now we're ready to have that conversation.
Yeah. And you've done all the right steps. It's now, again, hurry up and wait. So it's not like we could spend more time and like, what can we do now to make it go faster? It's really just talking with DNR, having that continued conversation and hoping that they don't make us go through the entire permitting, because that would be rough. They've
been really great to work with so far, so we're really encouraged by that. But ultimately, this goes back to what are going to be the statutory requirements to move forward.
Yeah, and so that's kind of a quick update of the timeline and where things stand. But do you also want to briefly touch on the capital campaign? Because that was
what a great
announced a couple months ago, and there has been some progress made from the community on that front.
Yeah, so we've had individuals, even folks who have funds set up at the Tipton County Foundation, who have given to the project. I want to thank them for those contributions, and we'll actually be formalizing some of that announcement, recognizing those individuals. And then I will say that we've had 3 really big sponsors who've come alongside so far. I'm going to say them now, but we're going to formalize this in press releases to give them the kudos they deserve. But the medical staff at IU Health were the first to come on board. They were really excited about this project even before that we made a decision to rebuild them on site. We've been in conversations for quite some time, and they've been super eager from the get-go. So they have committed. They're going to be one of our legacy partners at $100,000. We're going to name the Babe Ruth Field after that contribution. We'll get through the exact wording as we continue to work with them. But then the next one who came and had that conversation, want to be a legacy partner with us, was Encompass Credit Union. And that's not a surprise to anybody in the city of Tipton or Tipton County, that they've continued to be a great partner, strong partner for this community, showing up and wanting to be a participant. And so the Cal Ripken Field will be the Encompass Credit Union field. And then the third, and all these happened really quickly all together, which I think expresses that excitement from the community, is the Tipton County Foundation. And they came and wanted to participate at the legacy partner level. And so the Pee Wee Field will be the Tipton County Foundation Pee Wee Field. And we're really excited about their partnership, their investment into the project. And what we're going to do now is start to celebrate those as we continue to welcome in those contributions to the project. We're in conversation with the county right now. The city has some opportunity to partner with the county to get their investment into the projects. We think that will be celebrated in a similar fashion. And then other members of the community, businesses or individuals who want to give as little as $5 to the project or as much as they deem necessary. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. So it's, we hear the big ones, the Encompass Foundation, all that, but it's not just for people with big money, right? If you want to, your business wants to sponsor $50, that's perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely.
And what again, for a reminder for people, what is the goal of the capital campaign, right? Because the city is committed $2 million, but what does the additional funds provide to the overall baseball project?
Yeah. So because I keep getting this question, not the one that you asked, but I'm going to answer one that you haven't. The project is moving forward regardless of the success of the capital campaign. The facility will get built by the city's contribution of $2 million. But the additional reach, and we've set a capital campaign goal of $1 million, and right now we're somewhere close to $350,000. That'll help to increase some of the build quality. Right now, what we have in the project are dugouts that are we see more common into facilities today, which are there are covered roof dugouts with maybe a chain link wraparound and allows opportunities for team signage or sponsor signage. We see that a lot in new facilities built today. What we've heard from the community though is a need or an aspiration to see those actually in a more traditional block style dugouts. Yeah. So the success of the campaign will help us to achieve that. We can increase the contributions to the project, increasing the build quality. The same thing's true for the concession stand, to make sure that we have the appropriate amenities. We're going to build a concession stand to meet the existing needs, but maybe there's some things that we had through the scoping process had to remove, so that allows us to add it back in. Yeah. There's some other things that we're hoping through the success of this. One will be sod on the facility. Again, just really trying to remove Mother Nature from the equation. She is potentially a risk to the project as we try to meet some timelines. Is if we can instead invest in sod, that allows us to get a great carpet of grass, turf into the facility almost immediately. Yeah. And then some other things that come to mind. Lighting is going to be one that is really going to be a stretch. We haven't recently quoted lighting for the facility. But the last time, maybe a year ago, when I had a conversation with the lighting provider from like the school corporation, Musco Lighting, I think off the cuff, their estimate was around $600,000 or $700,000. So that's going to be a large investment. Yeah. The plan is still to, again, through the success of this, to get the infrastructure to those locations. We may not be able to actually put poles up and lights, but we'll actually have the infrastructure there ready. So if we do get there, we can invest in lighting. And then a playground. And that's one that I've never seen actually illustrated into any of the renderings before. on the facility that I continued to hear from parents is one of those things that they want to see reinvested in. It allowed for the kids who weren't quite old enough to play baseball. Those kids still had something to do. There's probably there's nothing worse than to be in the stands trying to watch your older child play while the other one is simply just bored and needs something to do. And so to give them that little area to do that, that's going to be part of this capital campaign too. We're not quite there yet. We think there could be a couple of partners who come alongside to help enable that, but a playground that's safe, visible was going to be a big key of that one. Something that's visible, but also safe, so they can play and still be part of the experience there at the Ball Diamonds, but maybe less of a distraction while mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are trying to watch.
Yeah. So overall, things are still moving forward.
Absolutely.
Whether or not you see bulldozers tearing up the ground or a structure going up, things are moving forward, and now we just need to have the most mild winter of ever so that the construction can continue throughout the winter. That'd be ideal.
Correct.
All right. So let's move on, transition to talking about the public safety building, because earlier this month in September, at the Board of Works meeting, bids were submitted for the renovation project, and we put out a post about that and got a lot of questions regarding the process and why the renovations were needed. So we're going to kind of just cover some of those questions so that the people are more informed. And correct. Because it might not be, you see the public safety building standing, but you might not know about the behind the scenes of why these renovations are needed. So let's go ahead and just do a brief overview of what all the renovation project is going to cover for the public safety building.
Yeah. And in fact, I might start first with what is the public safety building? Yeah. True. It's interesting that for probably you and I, we're so close to this all the time. We just casually throw these terms out, just expecting that people know what we're talking about. And the Facebook comments highlighted one of those issues, right? Yeah. What is the public safety building? So the public safety building is where our police department and fire department in the city of Tipton are housed. So it's not the county jail that's west of town. This is the location that is downtown. So with that, going back to your question, which was scope, right? So there's actually quite a few aspects of this project. And to be clear, we're not able to fix everything. Yeah. Ideally, that's what we wanted to do, was to fix everything. But the restriction of resources, the lack of dollars available to us is going to prevent that. So what we will be able to do are the critical improvements that need to be done. The roof over the apparatus bays, and again, I see apparatus, so people think like, what is that? Yeah. Those are the fire engines. That's the ladder truck, the ambulance. The roof over that is leaking, has been leaking. In fact, because of this, what we know is conversations with the firefighters, there's actually mold that's growing on the insulation in the apparatus base. So one of the big things is to do is, first off, stop the leaking. Yeah. We'll actually build a roofing system on top of the structure this isn't going to be a patch and repair. This is going to be a new roofing system on the structure, but then also the removal of the insulation that has the mold. Well, in fact, we'll take all the insulation out and replace it. But that's one of those remediation things that we've got to do. And then I think not only will improve air quality and such, but that fixes the apparatus bay roof. There's also some leaking that's happening on the other side of the structure, so where the police department is at. So we're going to fix that as well. The windows around the facility, I'm told, haven't operated appropriately or without leaking since it was built. Wow. And that was in 1994, 1995. I don't know if that's true or not. What I do know is they've been leaking for a long time, whether it's wind or if it's cold outside, it'll actually condensate on the windows. So what we'll do is replace all the windows around the facility to make sure that those are operating in a way should drive down utility costs on the structure, provide a more professional and appropriate work environment for police officers and the firefighters. With that, the windows on the apparatus bay, again, where we keep the fire engines and ambulances, those windows will get repaired as well. And if you take a moment, stop and look at that area, there's actually some siding material. It's not a traditional vinyl siding, but it's a siding type of material. You can see it bubbling. So part of this project is to replace that. clearly water has found its way into that material and is starting to cause that to degrade. So we're going to replace that, appropriately replacing it with material that will shed water in ways that we need it to. And as we continue the project moving more inside, right now what we have is a ventilation issue. This is true for the fire side and the police side. The fire side, we're actually pursuing a grant. We think there's an opportunity to be successful through some grant applications. One has already been submitted and we're awaiting a response from that. There's another one that opens up in the fall, but about circulating air in the apparatus bays where when they're either moving the trucks in and out or they're testing, those diesel particulates are in the air.
Yeah.
So we've got to do a better job just knowing how the fire industry has changed and recognize the danger of these things. We need to provide an environment for these firefighters to work safely. So finding ways to filter the air. There's a couple different methodologies. Our plan is to ideally pursue both.
Yeah.
Both with air filtration and to actually capture and exhaust it out the roof. So that's going to be part of this project. It's not getting paid through the same mechanisms as the rest of the project, but nonetheless, this is a major priority. And on the police side, they've got an evidence room naturally, as a police department would. Yeah. There's no ventilation in there. So from even little things, I don't want to minimize that, but if they have a drug bust and it's marijuana, you know it.
Yeah.
And you probably know, being in that facility, the fact that these officers and their staff have been exposed to this for decades, because marijuana is not exactly a new drug, is frankly unacceptable. You know, that we owe them a facility that is professional. I can't imagine trying to have if I was Chief Stout and we're trying to facilitate a conversation with a vendor or maybe a new recruit or what have you. And that smell is throughout the station. That's just not giving the best representation of the city of Tipton and Tipton Police Department. Yeah. But then you get into the more dangerous side of this. So with new drugs that have hit the scene, and in fact, we've had our experience locally of finding this, fentanyl. Mm-hmm. Fentanyl is one that becomes very dangerous at very low levels. If that gets
even just inhaling it from me to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So without a ventilation system, if for some reason an officer in moving something drops a vial or a bag, isn't sealed properly and then falls on the floor and becomes airborne, everybody is at risk in that structure. Mm-hmm. That potentially could, best case scenario, they just need some Narcan and everything is fine. Worst case, we're talking about fatalities.
Yeah.
And that, again, that is frankly unacceptable. So part of this project is to improve ventilation, to make sure that they've got an environment that's safe and professional so they can operate and do what they need to do. And another one I want to touch on, because I'm going to forget a lot of these improvements because there seems to be so many. Going back to the fire side, we have one shower stall today to support the needs of the fire department. And the problem with that becomes, as these standards have improved, we know that the firefighters are coming back from these structure fires with carcinogens on them. That's just the nature of firefighting. Yeah. With only having one stall, what happens is one firefighter gets a shower and the rest get to wait. And so whether they've likely shed all their gear off and such, they're still, whether it's in their hair or on their hands or their neck, it's still there.
Yeah.
And so we're, again, not providing them the best facility possible to make sure that they remain safe before, during, and after fighting the fire. So we're going to be improving and installing to make sure that there's at least 4 stalls, shower stalls on the facility so they can better shower and get clean after they fight a fire.
Yeah, and that's more of a long-term risk that most people don't think about, and it's been a bigger factor in the fire industry over the past decade or so, is correct. Really looking at these long-term effects of what happens when we go to a house fire and you're covered in all this soot and smoke and whatever, and now you come back and you sit there for 45 minutes because average 6 firefighters, whatever, on the station, maybe more if they come in after.
If it's a major structure fire.
Yeah, like now you're waiting 8 or 9 people to take a shower, and it's probably not just a quick 3-minute shower, right? You're trying to scrub and get clean. So now you're 2 hours down the road just sitting there in it still. So
Yeah. So I think some other I want to touch on that luckily I remembered is the entry into the police station, that sort of half moon canopy area. Mm-hmm. It has structural issues that is beginning. Water has found its way into not only the posts that hold that structure up, but then even some of the cladding. So that's going to get completely removed off the structure. We're going to rebuild that so it's safe and appropriate, and then fix some of the sidewall, the concrete cracking that's happened around that area to beautify that. So that's going to be an important one. And then also the internal HVAC. So we talked about exhaust and filtration with both the departments, but we also have HVAC issues that the dampers, I think, that are installed have failed over time or continue to fail. It's just one of those situations where we've got to do the necessary improvements to make sure that we're properly heating and cooling the facility in the way that provides a work environment that's appropriate.
Yeah. So, for an example, it was just a couple of weeks ago when we did your out of office at the police department, middle of August.
Yep.
And the AC was just frozen
solid.
Yeah. Like, that's probably not good.
Correct. So, and the temperature difference, though the facility is set generally at the same temperature, the difference in the temperature is wildly different. And so what they've had to do to counterbalance that is trying to decrease temperatures during the summer in one area to try to cool another area better, or in the winter, the opposite of that. So fixing that in a way that makes sure that if they have the temperature set at 70 degrees, it's 70 degrees in nearly every corner of that building. So that's going to be another major improvement that improves the quality of the facility and the environment in which they work.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is officially part of the plans, but I know it's been talked about, is circling back to maybe it's part of the ventilation system and things, but where the firefighters sleep right now is right outside where their gear is stored. Right. And so they go fight a house fire. Their gear is still covered. They wash it and stuff periodically, or I don't know officially how often they do, but then that gear is hanging there, and somebody's head could just be right on the other side of the wall while they're sleeping overnight. So again, I don't know if that's anything specifically done, or is that kind of part of the whole ventilation?
The gear storage, no. Again, that was one of those limitations on dollars for the project, but certainly weatherproofing the sleeping bays.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't exist today either. So that'll be part of this project, making sure to weatherize that. Yeah. So it functions like at our home, like the exterior doors. That's how those should be built.
It's not right now.
Correct. It is not today. So making sure that we do that so we can ensure that they're not being exposed to these either carcinogens from fighting a fire, the diesel particulates. So again, these are all just improvements in awareness that's happened in the fire industry, and it's taken us maybe a little longer to get this project to this point, but we now have through that feasibility study, understanding the needs, and now we're executing through the completion and start of construction. Yeah.
So you mentioned the feasibility study. This isn't something that's just happened within the last 6 months. This is something going back to the study. It's been going on for a while now. Correct?
Yeah, correct. In fact, if you talked probably in confidence with one of the officers or firefighters, there would probably be some project fatigue that they would express, because we've been talking about this for a long time, several years, in fact. So this is not a new project, but when I took office last year, we started with a feasibility study to understand and really document formally the needs and wants from the officers and firefighters, but then also understanding the industry standards that need to be implemented, and then also providing what's a short-term project, what does that look like, and what's a long-term? Because the questions that could be asked are, why even invest in it? If it is this bad, if it's truly this bad, why not just build a new station? And the answer, unfortunately, is that's $7 to $10 million.
Yeah, and
it took
finding a property.
Well, yes, correct. Well, you could build it right back on where it's at. There's other complications that you would need to do that. But we had to nearly move heaven and earth to get to $2 million to get the baseball project built. Now we're talking about exponentials of even that. The city just does not have the fiscal resources to commit a $7 to $10 million project today, which is why we need to be focused on growing the community in a responsible way so we can grow revenues for the city so we could build a new station in a not too distant future. But we had to do something today. Yeah. Keeping the facility as is, waiting for the promise of tomorrow. That sure we'll commit to building a new facility. That just it wasn't fair to the officers. It wasn't fair to the firefighters. We needed to do something today.
Yeah. So can you talk briefly just about where the funding for the project, where it's coming from, so people know?
Yeah, it's actually committed under the previous administration in 2022. I believe it was December of 2022 when it was finalized. It's called a general obligation bond, and it can get real nerdy on how this gets committed, but it's the growth and assessed value in your community based on state statute. You're only allowed to grow your levy 4.5% or 4% is the maximum growth quotient, is what they call it at the State House. During that year, our assessed value growth must have been in excess of 4%. So there's an opportunity where you can capture that growth through a bonding mechanism, and that's what they did in 2022. This was the primary driver of that bond issuance. Some of those dollars did get invested into the plaza, the downtown plaza, and then we've, since taking office, I preserved those dollars, I think is how I want to say it, for this project specifically. So it did help us with the feasibility study, and then the remainder is getting spent on the improvements to the structure. So that's the mechanism that will afford these improvements, and I think that bond expires in 2027. I think it's a 5-year bond.
Okay. So it's not we're raising your taxes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I don't know this, but typically in these bond issuances, it keeps the tax levy neutral. So it doesn't raise, it doesn't lower, it keeps it neutral. So you're not raising taxes to get it done.
Yeah. So overall, what does this mean for the community, but also more specifically for the men and women who firefighters live there essentially and work there on a day-to-day basis? Yeah,
what we want to do is improve the professional environment in which they work and sometimes live. Frankly, the firefighters live there. They have 24-hour shifts. So we want to make sure that facility is of a standard that provides that professional and acceptable work environment. It's providing some really basic accessibilities, that your windows aren't leaking cold air and your AC is appropriately cooling the areas in your facility. Your roofs aren't leaking. So we're going to shore up the envelope of the structure, make some improvements that help improve the professional nature of the structure, and then just get it to a standard that helps us to meet or get closer to meeting those expectations within their respective industries.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap things up, we talked about timeline for the baseball field project. Mm-hmm. So what does the timeline look like now? The project has been out for bid. The bids have been submitted, and now where we go from here.
Yeah, so we had to go through the process. We did the bid opening, and based on that, something that we learned through the comments too is, based on state statute, you're required by a unit of government, you are required to accept the lowest and responsive bidder. And what that means is you lay out the expectations, what you need a bid to have in it. Mm-hmm. So there's a myriad of things that you need, and they'll change project to project. And then there's always price. What we did and what you typically see happens when you open those, you read the bid price, because there's just not enough time in that moment to review. Yeah. In fact, it took us, I would say, 4 days to fully go through every single bid to make sure that they were qualified bids. But then by state statute, we have to accept the lowest and the responsive bidder. So we've gone through that process. We've confirmed that the lowest bidder was, in fact, had every expectation that we needed it to have, and is a qualified bid. So now what we'll do, we've got to provide them with a formal notice. Have a lot of confidence in this company, only because I know they've done some projects locally, and I know they've got a lot of experience working for other cities in this region. So they're very familiar with this type of work and the expectations that come with it. But now what we'll do is give them formal notice, then we'll schedule the kickoff meeting. And at the kickoff meeting, we'll review what the expectations are. One of the challenges with our project is that we have 2 departments who still need to operate each and every day out of that facility. So we can't go in there and close all the restrooms, for example, right? We've got to make sure that there's still access. Well, it might not be the same restrooms. There's still access to restrooms. for them to get to. It's kind of minor things like that.
Yeah.
And then they'll go through, this is, like I said, this is the worst part of a project because we're going to do a lot of waiting. They're going to have to order materials because we don't want to start demoing without the materials to rebuild. And then they'll begin, before we get to ordering materials, they'll start to build that schedule of construction.
Yeah.
And then what will end up happening, they'll bring that back to us. We'll review it mostly from a department perspective to make sure that there's no conflicts. And then from there, it's kickoff that we'll see the work happening both internal and external to the structure. And then ideally in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll have a facility that has been renovated.
Yeah. Yeah. So no specific timeline yet, but hopefully within the next month and a half, you'll have that kickoff meeting and be able to provide more of a structured timeline moving forward.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, anything else to say on either project before we wrap things
Just
up?
Excited about the public safety building. To my knowledge, this is the largest investment into that structure since it was built. Ideally, we wouldn't take this long to make an investment into this structure, but we're trying to be meaningful now that we've came into office knowing the problems and we've worked hard to solve them. And the public safety building has been a known problem for a long time. This isn't a recent project that came about. We've been talking about this. In fact, there was an opportunity at one time that Tipton Police Department and the Sheriff's Department were going to coexist in the jail. Now that fell apart a long time ago, but that's how long this project has been known, the challenges of the facility. So I'm excited about getting the project across that start line so it can hopefully very quickly get to the finish line.
Awesome. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of the Tipton Thrives Podcast. Thanks, Keegan, for providing these updates that people have been asking about.
I appreciate the facilitation today, Riley.